皆さんこんにちは。筋肉 Ninja Ash です。よろしくお願いします。Hey there everybody, my name's Ash and I've been studying Japanese through alljapaneseallthetime.com's immersion method for the last 2.5 years now. So here is my top 10, my summary of the things that I found the most difficult about learning Japanese. Have a look through, see if you agree with me. Give me a thumbs up if you do agree with any of those points, and stick with me to the end because I think you'll find the last one the most surprising. Also, I don't have any fancy editing software, so I'll be doing all the numbers like this. Ready? Number 10, textbooks. Textbooks are the go-to thing when learning anything new, but there's so many different textbooks on the market. How do you know which one's for you? There's so many different kinds and people spend a lot of time researching about all the good points and bad points of all the different ones. And it's understandable that you want to spend a lot of time researching and looking into something even, before you devote some time into learning something new. I've said before that I managed some basic conversation skills through using textbooks like Japanese for Busy People before I started doing immersion method. And for some people, textbooks are a good way of assisting your immersion as you begin, because some people textbooks will be a good way of helping assist their immersion, because a lot of people don't like being dropped in at the deep end. It can be very overwhelming, especially if they don't understand anything that's going on, and textbooks can help people get over the initial hump. But I find they're incredibly business focused. My friend Sally and I always laugh at the word bengoshi and meishi because they use that all the time in Japanese class, and it just did my head in. I'm never going to be a bengoshi. Why do I need to learn that word? And nowadays, whenever it pops up in the wild, and it has done a couple of times, it always makes me giggle. There's also quite a bit of a stigma that textbooks use very old-fashioned vocabulary that people don't use anymore, and lots of old-fashioned grammar too. And yeah, it does sound like, would you kindly pass the business card, please? Thank you so very much. And people don't talk like that in real life. Another thing that textbooks are notorious for is for baffling people with linguistic terms that they can't even answer questions about in their own native language, never mind a second language. Like if something is the imperative or intransitive form of a verb, who cares? I'm saying this as an English teacher, but it's not something we spend that much time on when we're acquiring the language, only when we're later studying the language. So if you're trying to learn a new language, don't worry so much about what is what, and just absorb the language naturally the same way that you do when you're learning your own native language. Textbooks have another common problem, which leads me on to my next point. Number 9, Romaji. Romaji is the absolute enemy of learning Japanese, and I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't actually match written, real Japanese. Here's an example. Arigato is how it looks in Romaji, but it actually is arigato when written in Hiragana. I don't understand why they do that. Why try and simplify things? Or even overcomplicate things. They use symbols like the O with the double dots above the top of it. But we don't even use that in English, so why would you do that? That's making it have sounds that we don't even use. Just go and learn Hiragana. Just go learn it. It takes 2 weeks at most. It took me 2 weeks. You can do it much faster. Go try it. Go learn it. Come back. Number 8, Hiragana. It's really not that difficult. Yeah, there's a few swirly whirlies here and there, but there's lots of really good mnemonics to help you learn it, so just go away. It takes 2 weeks. Come back and learn it. You'll thank me so much for it because it'll make your Japanese learning journey so much better. Number 7, progress. I'll be honest. The first time I went to Japan, I thought my skills were legit. I'd been studying Japanese for a little while. I'd finished a whole textbook. I've been to Japanese class. I knew a couple of kanji. I thought there'd be nothing that was going to trip me up out of the ordinary. And then, in the airport, a little boy pointed a banana at me and went bang! Sorry, Slim. I returned the favour, got my fingers together, bang! And he said to me, "Dame da! Ore no hou ga suyoi zo!" And out of all that, the only word I managed to pick out was suyoi. I felt absolutely lost and defeated despite all the hard work I'd done. I went around the corner, ordered myself a beer in Japanese, and as I sat down to drown my sorrows, I thought, well, it can't be that bad. If I can get myself a drink, I'll be able to get around. I did this while reading the Japanese on the back of the can, and I just think, you know, it's difficult to know when you've made progress or not, or a small amount of time, and then all of a sudden you realise the things that you do know, and it's easy to beat yourself up about it. I've heard that the best way to test your progress in Japanese is to start another new language completely from scratch. And then you'll be like, oh my god, I don't know any of these things in this language, but I know them all in Japanese. It makes you feel a lot better about yourself. Even at this point where I've been doing Japanese AJATT style for 30 months now, I'm still learning new words every day. Have you ever had a moment like this? Let me know in the comments. Number 6, reading the air. Kuki o yomu. Reading the air. If you've got to say something, why can't you just say it? Kuki o yomu. Reading the air, or reading between the lines as we would say in English, is something that's incredibly Japanese, and it's a phenomenon I'll never really understand. If you need to say something, just say what you need to say. Half the battle of learning Japanese is not learning what they've actually said, but learning what they want you to do when you've listened. Getting the meaning of what they're trying to say without saying it. It just, for me, it's not so bad when you're watching anime or playing video games, for example, because they're giving you direct instructions, but in conversation it can be quite difficult. There was a famous tweet, which I'll show you here, is in the news. Last year, a tweet went viral in Japan. A businessman in Kyoto met a potential client, and after a while the client complimented the businessman on his watch. And at first the man started to explain the watch's features, but then realised that what the client really wanted was for him to have a look at his watch, see what time it was, and wrap up the conversation. Number 5, double negatives. Right, now, depending on your level, you might not have come across this one yet. In Japanese, to say you have to do something, you have to say you can't not do something. And for me, that took a very long time to get used to. I don't know if it's just me being stupid or if it's something that a lot of people battle with. Please let me know if you struggle with this one as well. To give you an example, shukudai o shinakereba naranai. Shukudai o shinakereba naranai. Kore o tabenai to. They both mean I can't not do this, or I can't not eat this. It means I have to eat this, or I have to do my homework. Ooh, it's so difficult. Number 4, katakana. Okay, hands up for all those people that have to read a katakana word several times to figure out what it's supposed to say. Yep, still. It's just so frustrating when you can read a kanji word and understand the meaning straight away, like腕三頭筋. But then, you have to spend a long time trying to figure out what oasis, what that means, oasis. It can take me 20 minutes to try and figure out a katakana word sometimes, whereas a kanji word I can read right off the bat, and if I can't read it aloud, I'll know what it means because I know the kanji. Ugh, it's so frustrating. Number 3, yep, there it is, kanji. Don't get me wrong, kanji are incredible, and my last point proves that perfectly. But once you get over the complexity and the immense volume of how many kanji there are, you'll ever wonder how you manage to read anything in Japanese without them. Playing the early Pokemon games becomes like an absolute visual nightmare because all you can see is just line after line after line of hiragana, and the kanji really help break things up. They're really, really, really useful. It's just the vast number of them, and some of them that are incredibly similar, that trip a lot of people up. I can't recommend the Heisei method enough though, remembering the kanji, for getting used to them. But even now I still slip up on symbols, so just don't beat yourself up about it. Number 2, asking for help. Yes, asking for help online, the online community. I hate to say it, but the majority of people learning Japanese, especially when I was beginning back in the day, were extremely hostile. I mean, seriously, if they're not mystifying Japanese and making it sound all so difficult than it is, or putting off other people from learning it, they'll be looking at other people's progress and making fun of them for trying, like some sort of competition or ego swinging tournament. If you say you're learning Spanish, for example, a lot of people will be really pleased to hear that you're learning Spanish, and they'll be like, oh, that sounds really good, fantastic. But if you say you're learning Japanese, they'll want handwritten proof of all the kanji that you know. They'll want to know exactly how many hours you've immersed for, your JLPT scores, your JCAT scores, your blood type, your star sign, and video proof of your pronunciation. And forbid that you sound like a foreigner, Just give it a rest. Be more helpful to each other, please, guys. Before I get to number 1, be sure to give the channel a subscribe and like the video if you haven't done already. It really helps me out, especially if you agree with any of my points. Number 1, actually doing some studying. No, I know what you're thinking, I've done it myself. Procrastination and playing games instead of doing my active study and things like that. I've even spent a lot of time watching videos in English about Japanese rather than watching videos in Japanese about something that I like, or doing some study just like we're doing now. Seriously, go grab a textbook, open up Anki, play a game, read a book, whatever your hobby is, just do it in Japanese and do it right now. I'll leave a few videos in the description box below to help you get started with immersion. And for those who haven't seen it, I'll show you how I started learning Japanese with my AJATT method about my 6-month update video, and that'll help you get started. Please leave a comment if you need to hear some more encouragement, and I hope to hear from you soon. Ja ne.